Alright, y'all, it's July the 2nd, 2024, and I'm about to harvest some potatoes. Now, everybody do things differently, but I, for one, wait until the leaves starts drying back and turning yellow before I harvest. It's just my way of doing it, and that's what I prefer to do. So here I have some red potatoes, and as you can see, we're already getting potatoes. This is a really heavy bearer, and so I grow these every year. I grow them in containers as well as in ground. So I'm going to go ahead and dig, and this is just a little space I have here. But nonetheless, I can still pull out some really good sized potatoes from this raised bed. Now, because the skins of these potatoes are tender, I'm just taking my time with it and going through little by little with my hands, not even a tool. Well, my hand is a tool. And so I'm going to go slowly and dig in there and try finding the potatoes without damaging them. And the ones that are damaged, I'm going to be eating them probably today, because nothing is better and tastier than a nice fresh tender potato that they've grown. Look at the size of these guys. Look at the size of these potatoes. And my harvest is usually so bountiful that I don't have to go to the grocery store to purchase potatoes. Whenever it's done, if we run out of it, we move on to something else like the winter squash that we have stored up. But I grow way more potatoes than I would ever buy in the grocery store when I used to buy potatoes. So this is quite a bit of potatoes that I'm going to be harvesting. I'm going to be eating some along the way, eating it nice and tender and fresh. And I'm also going to be storing up some so that we can use it over the winter months when we're not growing outdoors to make our meals. Now, I prefer coming outdoors very early in the morning when it's cooler out to do my harvesting. I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, and by 5:30, I was already out in the garden harvesting herbs. And now I'm here to do the potatoes because the sun's about to come up over the trees. And if you notice, this small area is where I harvested so far all these potatoes, and I'm not done with the entire row. So I have one row of potatoes here and a second row of a different variety. And I try to harvest all of it, but for some reason some of the smaller potatoes end up staying in ground, and so that regrows the following year. It just pops up in the garden in the spring, just like that one right there, and it grows and it produces a lot of potatoes. So no matter how small that little itty bitty potato is that you missed the year before, it's going to overwinter right there in the soil and spring back up in the spring and produce potatoes. So as you see, after a while, it gets really easy to grow your own food because you get used to doing all this work. It may seem like a lot of work, but if you enjoy gardening and if you enjoy all the rewards, you'll definitely want to do this every year. And not just with potatoes. You would want to plant a lot of other different crops, especially if you have the space for it. And if you feel like you just want to stick to potatoes or root crops, it's like you just set them there, plant them properly, take care of the soil, and they would produce for you. You don't have to baby them or give them any special type of care. Potatoes are heavy nitrogen feeders, and so you want to make sure that your soil have enough nitrogen. I mix my soil with my chicken compost, which is a plus for me because I raise my own chickens and I don't have to go out there and buy compost or buy soil or anything of the sort. Everything goes in full circle here, and I utilize or try to utilize everything that's produced here on my homestead, whether it's a chicken composting, feed it to the garden feeds the compost, and everything goes in full circle. And I'm able to maintain a healthy ecosystem on my homestead. Alright, so now I have just a few of these Pontiac red potatoes left, so we're going to pull these out. And guys, look at the harvest just from one row, and you see the size of this bed. One row of potatoes gave me so much, and I still have more to harvest, but this here is a different variety of potatoes. And as you can see, the leaves are beginning to yellow like the red potatoes, and it's starting to die back. And this is only half the bed. The other half of the bed, I'm growing onions in it, and beyond those onions on the same bed, I have some leafy greens. I think those are kale, some variety of kale that I have growing there. So I'm sharing this bed with 3 different crops. And so this is successful companion planting in full effect. That's working out a great deal. So let's go ahead and harvest these potatoes. I'm going to just pull the branches off first, and then we'll dig in and get our tubers at the bottom. All right, so here's the reveal. These are some yellow potatoes. This is one of the smaller ones, but I can assure you that there are bigger ones in there. So let's dig in. I'm confident that I'll be pulling out bigger potatoes because I know what I've put in. And I hill these potatoes up because they grow up the stalk instead of going towards the soil. So all I do is just hill it up or add more soil. I gather the soil, pull the soil towards the base of the plant as it grows, and as it grows and grows, I keep just pulling the soil so it's actually touching the plant. So I'm pulling out some potatoes, and my harvest always excites me because I always get a good harvest when I grow food. My only issue of not getting a good harvest is if the critters get to it before it's developed and before it's able to produce it full its capacity. But for now, look at that, guys. The supermarket has nothing on me. These are all organically grown. They're nice big potatoes. And look at the haul just from this small area here. And this is a great reward. It's just more encouragement for me to keep growing and keep planting. Even though there might be challenges, I'm going to keep growing because I can provide food for my family. I know where the food comes from. I know what medium I'm growing it in. I know what it's put into the soil. And so that's one of the things that I have control over, where my food comes from and what I'm putting into my body. This right here is a mother, and that's a potato seed that I planted here in March. And now it's July 2nd, and I can pull nice, tender, organic potatoes from the soil so my family can enjoy healthy, delicious meals. All right, I think I made it. I think I'm done harvesting, and this is what we pulled out of the soil this morning, and it was only planted in half of this bed, as you can see, a very small area with so much produce. That's it, guys, just a half of a raised bed. Now I have potatoes growing in containers also, and look at that, large containers, huge containers. So I'm gonna be harvesting potatoes from these a little bit later on. I already pulled all the flowers off because they were going to flower, and these potatoes here have not started to die back as yet because I planted in succession. I planted the first set I harvested in March, and then about 3 weeks or so later I planted these here in the container. And if you look right through here, I also have some growing in 5-gallon buckets. So I grew potatoes in ground. I'm growing in 25-gallon planters, and I'm also growing in 5-gallon buckets. If you're a new gardener and you want to start growing, I think potatoes is one of the easiest things you can grow. You would get a good harvest. Even if you want to grow in containers, there's nothing wrong with that. You would actually have good produce, even growing these in containers. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time right here on Fifi's Urban Homestead and Lifestyle.